Over Sega's vast history, they have created some pretty memorable games, but no game can truly be great without characters that are appealing. In the early days of the company, it was the likes of the lovable Opa Opa and Alex Kidd. That gave way to more mature creations like Gilius Thunderhead from Golden Axe and Blaze Fielding from Streets of Rage. When the Saturn showed up, there was Knights, the jester-like hero trying to save the Land of Dreams. And then there were a slew of new mascot contenders like Bug, Astal, and the Clockwork Knight. When the Dreamcast burst onto the scene, Ryo and many of the cast from Shenmue introduced a bunch of new characters for Sega. We also met all the new creations from Space Channel 5 all the way up to Jet Grind Radio. That is a major summary of what was literally hundreds of characters over the course of some 20 years. I recently came up with the idea of doing a Mount Rushmore of these Sega characters. The basic thought there was to choose just 4 of Sega's greatest creations. I felt this would be challenging because you aren't choosing based on just the quality of the games themselves, but rather the overall appeal of the character. And boy did that turn out to be one hell of a task. I sat down and started by choosing all the characters I really liked from Sega, and that list was absolutely massive. Whittling that down to just 4 was gonna be a tough task, but that's exactly what I did. This one should be a nice change from my normal content, and I really hope you enjoy it. I think it's probably important that we make no attempt at surprise for our first edition because he's become such a major part of Sega over the last 30 plus years. Sonic the Hedgehog belongs here whether you like his games, hate them, or are completely indifferent to them. Sonic is the face of the company, and when it comes to guaranteed software releases, you know you're gonna get a couple of new games every year. Software sales wise, he is without question the most successful creation this company has ever done internally. Not having Sonic here would be like not having Mario on a Nintendo themed Mount Rushmore. For me personally, Sonic earned his place during the 16-bit generation. The Genesis had been on the market for 2 years when he showed up in North America, and while there already was some traction thanks to a great library, there is no doubt the arrival of Sonic changed everything. That explosion of media coverage, advertising, and attention gave Sega the boost it needed right at the perfect time, the arrival of the Super Nintendo. And for multiple games after that, Sonic kept selling well for Sega. Even when those sales became lackluster, it usually didn't take long for a new addition to the series to right the ship. Sonic also had numerous spin-offs like kart racing, sports, RPGs, and party games. Hell, the little blue blur even goes to the Olympics with Mario. He's become such a staple for Sega. Sonic has even had multiple successful TV shows and films, and surprisingly, some of this stuff has been pretty entertaining. Then there is the massive amount of merchandising that Sonic has added to Sega's portfolio. Toys, t-shirts, coffee mugs, stuffed animals, and countless other products adorned with Sonic's image has no doubt made Sega millions of dollars over the last 3 decades. When it comes to raw success, appeal, and importance to Sega as a brand, Sonic earns his face on this list with ease. Sega wouldn't be the same without our spiny little speedster. The next choice may come as a surprise because he originally only appeared in Japanese Sega Saturn ads towards the latter half of the console's life. Sagata Senshiro was the Saturn-loving judo master who insisted that you must play Sega's 5th generation machine. So insistent was he that he would beat down all those who weren't playing the Saturn that crossed his path. These ads were some of the funniest and aggressive marketing campaigns I've ever seen, and I would have loved to have seen something similar done in the US and Europe. This is especially the case because what we did receive in the West was absolutely awful in comparison. Sagata Senshiro earns his place because of the sheer appeal and entertainment value that he created. While it would take years for his legacy to reach outside of Japan, I think in a way he has become the face of the Sega Saturn for many of us, even if we weren't aware of him during the actual time his ads were commercially relevant. This is the way we wanted Sega to battle Sony and Nintendo in our regions. These are the ads we needed to help sell our consoles of choice. So beloved was the character in Japan, they even had a send-off commercial for him before the Dreamcast launched there. In a final bit of heroism, Sagata deflects a missile aimed at Sega's headquarters, sacrificing himself so the company could live to fight another day. In the years since, he's become a cult icon that is as much associated with the Saturn as any of its games. That's pretty impressive, and I put him on my list because of it.
あとはドリームキャストの発売を待つばかりだ。セガサターンしろ。セガサターンしろ。セガサターンしろ。セガタ三四郎は君たちの心に真剣遊戯。セガサターン。
After Sega left the console business, the brand sort of had an era where it was redefining itself. It tried creating games that appealed to the masses, but much of that was met with negative or lukewarm receptions. It took a while for Sega to find its footing and hone in on new creations that people wanted to play. One of the game series that emerged from this time was the Yakuza titles. It was kind of a natural extension of the Shenmue games, and it would go on to become a huge hit for Sega. That gives us the third entry on my Mount Rushmore of Sega characters, the embattled star of that series, Kazuma Kiryu. Kiryu has starred in many of these games, or at least attached to a significant portion of the stories for multiple titles. Though Kiryu is a member of the Japanese Yakuza, you never get the sense he is evil or a bad guy. In fact, it's quite the opposite right from the moment you first meet him. He is under constant threat by the unscrupulous villains all around him. He gets accused of murder, double-crossed, loses friends and allies, and has to single-handedly clear his own name while defending his clan from a hostile takeover. That's just in the first game. I feel the strength of this series really does ride on the shoulders of Kiryu, and the way he has to deal with the constant adversity and the twists and turns that were always thrown his way. His constitution never wavered, and he never resorted to acting like the power-mad fools around him. I admired that, and it gave the Yakuza games a sense of maturity and seriousness despite some of its more comical aspects. As the series grew and expanded, Kiryu would be joined by other characters that would build their own stories, but you always got a sense that even they benefited from the development Kiryu went through over the years. A good developer knows what works and what fundamentals you hold on to, and Kiryu's growth was center stage. Few games are able to go multiple entries and keep you interested in its story, much less the same character. Ryuga Gotoku built this series around a character that accomplished just that, and he's one of Sega's best creations. The fourth and final choice for our Sega Mount Rushmore went through numerous changes. So much so that it actually delayed the video for weeks because I had to rewrite the script based on those changes. I mean, what exactly did I choose here? Did I honor Sega's past? Did I shoot for a crowd favorite? Or did I go with something intensely personal? I decided on the latter, and our fourth and final edition is Joe Musashi of the Shinobi games. Joe himself never got any great amount of story or character development in his games, so how does he end up here? I don't think you will find a Sega creation that embodies the notion of the journey being more important than the destination than it does here. Shinobi had been a strong action game in its own right, especially for a 1987 release, but by the time we got to Revenge of Shinobi, Joe goes from a simple rescue mission to having to save the life of his bride-to-be. This journey was difficult just getting there, but then you faced an enemy so devious he made you watch as your girl was crushed during the battle. I was only able to save her after numerous tries, but those failures hit hard and created a strange sense of commiseration with the character. I also felt like I grew with Shinobi as the new games appeared. In Shinobi 3, you got an arsenal of new moves to learn, so there was always something making the character feel new and exciting. The thing is, the story kinda stopped mattering at all in these games, and the character took on a life all his own. It didn't matter who the manual said was under the mask, it was always Joe you were playing. Joe was Shinobi, and that was all there was to it. Sega would let 7 years pass between the Saturn and PlayStation 2 games, so there were a lot of missed opportunities, but my Sega journey with Joe Musashi, or the Shinobi character in general, wouldn't have been the same without him. He was the lead in one of Sega's most defining and well-known action titles for the better part of 2 console cycles, and I'll never forget it. So there we go guys, my 4 choices for the best characters Sega ever created. No matter my personal reasoning, a list like this will be extremely subjective person to person. I imagine game quality, genre type, art style, and all sorts of other reasons will affect how these choices could be made. Lan Di was on my list at one point because I thought he was such an effective villain. I also had G from the House of the Dead because that series was so quintessentially Sega and he was the face of numerous entries. That leads me to posing a question to you. Who are the 4 characters you'd put on a Sega Mount Rushmore and why? Let me know down in the comments what you think. I'm Sega Lord X, thank you guys for watching and I will catch you next time.